There's a lot of things going on in the media. Krishna here.
Hey.
Jedi Steve here. There's a lot of things going on in the media. And there's a lot of, like, one of my things I love about the United States, and I haven't called the United States her until recently. And I love I'm more of a citizen of the world, but I'm also a United States citizen. And I love being part of the United States with all its flaws. I have, not always, I have unconditional love, or try to have unconditional love for her, United States. But I know we've had a history that a lot of that stuff I'm not responsible for at all. But as a citizen, I do take ownership in that and try to do my part to make her better. And how do I make her better? By being better myself. So I wanted to invite Krishna for us to have a conversation with a lot of things that are going on in society, with the exodus of some people that were immigrants that originally were indigenous to this area, that are being pushed out of the United States. And I'm not somebody that thinks we should open our borders to everybody, but also I'm not somebody that finds joy when people that are living here and have family here are being pushed out of our community.
Yeah.
So, without me asking a question, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. I want to, contribute to the referring to lands by a specific name, and we can give it a gender quality, as you did, which I think is really beautiful. Because I also think of planet Earth as a her, she's our sacred mother. And these lands that are referred to as the United States by many of the indigenous peoples are referred to as Turtle Island. So sometimes I will use that term to refer to these lands. Sometimes I'll just say the other perhaps native words that I've come to learn from the different indigenous peoples in particular lands. I'm a California native, meaning there's been 3+ generations of us that have lived in these lands. And I have roots going back to Mexico. But really, these lands were part of Mexico once. So it's really interesting when we start using all these words, because then we have to think about, like, what timeline in the evolution are we speaking from, right? But yeah, I just want to share, like, also, if I say Turtle Island, you know what I'm referring to.
Got it. What's the origin of that, of Turtle Island? Like, what does that come about?
So the origin story, it's told by many different Native American and indigenous peoples of these lands, of the Americas. They say Turtle Island because the shape and the structure was similar to a turtle, and they had their origin story connected to understanding time, cycles of time, with like their 13 plates on their back and things like that, the 13 cycles, 13 moons of the year, and things like that. So
there's a lot of good information online, but there's a lot of fear that's pushed, and we have to get in alignment with the good that we want to see. I tell people how my car's set up when they're in there. It's like how was this started? And I was like, well, currently this is ground zero for what I want to see in the world. A lot of people are aligned with, oh, these people, this group should do better, but they're not, again, being stewards of what they want to see in the world. So, what are some strategies? Because I want this to be solution based. What are some strategies to be in alignment with what's going on? So for instance, say somebody's doesn't have their papers, or they're approached by Homeland Security or in the situation. What are some ways? I've heard consult immigration attorney.
Mm-hmm.
You say you
or an advocacy group
say you ask for that. Say you ask for that because that's, you're speaking that person's language, as far as like, okay, I want to speak to an immigration attorney so they can look through, because they're dealing with that on an everyday basis, so they're going to know what to do more so than you, even though it's a Google click away. They're going to know, and they're going to be an advocate for you in that
for
situation.
sure, and give you the legalese that is needed, the legal vocabulary
For sure.
to navigate situations.
Because you have to. I like to be in the world but not of the world, so I like to align with ways to be able to do things in a process. And a lot of times I don't have any knowledge of how to handle a situation, but I stand present, and the people around me will do it.
When we are faced in a situation where we feel like there's authority figures and they're asserting some type of power on us in a way that we feel afraid, frightened, or threatened, whether it's valid or not, again, tying back to this conversation we're having about the, current status with the immigration conversation and what is immigration, like, I like to say, like, the border crossed us. We didn't cross the border, right? So, like, natives and that whole sovereignty piece about having rightful ability to be on your native soils. But separate from all of that is, if we go back to the knowing that we have innate power, we are powerful. When we're in a situation where we don't feel like we have power because there's a system of authority being present, we have to come back to ourselves and tell us, okay, what do I have control over? What are my rights? Your rights are, unless there's a warrant for your arrest that's signed by a judge, you do not need to comply with any request that's being made. Again, we are choosing at that point to resist, but being thoughtful around your emotions. Like, how emotional are you getting? Like you said, if it appears like you're getting violent, then you give probable cause for the powers that be, or someone who does have a position of power, whether it's valid or not in a situation, whether it's the immigration conversation or some other, where you're in a circumstance where you feel like someone is forcing you to do something that you don't want to do. Remembering that you have inherent rights, and say like, well, this is where advocacy for people is really important, and us standing in solidarity with each other is really important, because I'm not a lawyer. Like, I don't know the legalese. Like I just shared, this 3-4 generations now been in these lands, so in modern times, so I don't have a frame of reference of like crossing the border or like having fear about that. Like, I don't have that as a residual in my family directly in the now, although there's ripple effects with the whole colonialization and being colonized and everything like that. And so I would just say, when we get caught up in a lot of fear, it's not helpful for us to like think about systems to protect each other, stand in solidarity with each other, find solutions, learn the legalese or learn what our rights are in these situations. We're more in survival mode, so we're not able to do any of those things. So I would, urge someone to slow down and get a handle on the fear, because I understand it's real and it's a real thing. But this is where the idea of standing in our sovereignty is in connection to other people, our tribe, and those that are allies for, people who are in a circumstance where they're having less power in a situation for whatever reason.